used to think God is a hiding place, and there was actually one bit of company in the cell was an ant, this pet ant that she had, and she used to watch the ant hide away whenever the ant heard a noise, and that reminded her of the Bible verse. But Corrie was praying that she could get a Bible, and sometimes God answers prayers in really odd ways. Corrie actually got sick, but when she got sick, she was taken to a nurse, and the nurse felt very sorry because the nurse realized that Corrie was in prison for doing what was right. Corrie had been helping people to hide from the Germans. And so the nurse said to Corrie, well, what can I do to help you? How can I make your time in solitary confinement easier? So Corrie asked for a Bible. She also asked for a needle and thread so she could fix her clothes and be a bit warmer. And she asked for any letters that her family sent her in prison would get delivered to the cell because the Germans were holding on to the letters. And one day, Corrie did get a letter, and it was from another family member. But Corrie noticed on the letter that the address on the envelope was pointing upwards. It was pointing up towards the postage stamp. So Corrie thought, I wonder if there's a secret message under the postage stamp. And when she lifted the postage stamp, the message said, all of the watches in the house, in the closet, are safe. And that was a hidden message for Corrie to say that all of the Jews that they'd been hiding in the house had been rescued. The Germans hadn't caught any of them. And Corrie was encouraged by this, but then a letter came, a very sad letter came from another family member, and it said, you might want to sit down, Corrie, when you read this. Unfortunately, your 84-year-old father died after 10 days in prison. He didn't survive. So Caspar ten Boom passed away and the German prisoner. So Corrie was being interrogated. That meant she was being taken by a German officer every so often into his office, and he was trying to get her to tell him where they were hiding the Jews and what they'd been doing in the house. Now, Corrie was quite clever. She knew if she did say anything that not only herself would be in very serious trouble, but all of the Jews they were hiding and the other resistance workers would be in danger as well. So Corrie thought about her dad. She also thought about ways to save everyone else. So she would witness to the German officer and talk about the Bible. So when the German officer would say, well, why were you helping these disabled people? Why were you helping Jews? Corrie didn't say, well, it's because I'm a resistance fighter, or it's because I don't like what you're doing to them. She said, it's because God cares about even the weakest people, and God cares about someone who has mental health issues as much as God cares about me, a watchmaker. Now, the reason this conversation was coming up was because the Germans had started off by arresting people with mental health issues. And then later on, they turned their attention onto people with racial differences as well. But the more the German officer listened to Corrie, the more the German officer started to notice the difference between Corrie's behavior and Corrie's worldview and his own. And he began to shift away from asking questions about the resistance and about hiding Jews, and more about the Bible and what God cares about. And one day he showed Corrie a letter that he had found when searching Corrie's house. And in the letter listed the addresses of the other resistance fighters. But the German officer took the letter and put it in the fire, and he burnt it. And he said, I'd rather listen to the Bible than ask you about this. And he asked Corrie to pray for his family. His family, the German officer's family, was in a town that was being bombed by the Allies daily, so he was worried about them. And eventually he said to Corrie, you know what, you can keep your Bible in your cell, and I'll give you all of the letters that people send you. And Corrie was really encouraged by this. So she had people she could talk to, even though she was in solitary confinement. After a while, Corrie and her sister Betsy were moved. They had to take all their belongings from the cell, and they were put on a train, and they were told, you're going to go to the Folkestone concentration camp. So they gathered up their belongings, and they saw each other one last time at the train station before they got onto the train. And we'll pick up the story next time when they get moved into a prisoner of war camp in 1944.